So if you do have questions, feel free to raise your hand during the session. That is much more fun for all of us because then we know this is going to be relevant. It's going to answer your questions. Before we go into that, I want to just set the stage a little bit about what is this going to be, this session. I'm a personal transformational coach. I'm a transformational leadership coach. And for me, transformation is intentional change in a desired direction, and leadership is really how do we lead ourselves and sometimes also others into that direction. So I work both with individuals who desire to have personal change, work with corporates and entrepreneurs who have a desired change in their business, in their income levels. And what we're going to be talking about today is very specifically around how do we change our perception of money, and not just how we think about money, but how do we feel about money, because that is really where most of our decisions are made, is how do we feel about something. So to just set the stage a little bit, the work that I do very much involves what I call identity shifting, which basically means imagine the kind of change that you want to have. And now imagine what your life looks like when you have that change. And now imagine, who are you having this life? Who are you leading this life? What kind of person are you? And then get really, really clear, not just on what does your life look like and what do you do, but who are you as an individual? What is your identity? And then after that, we get really, really clear on, okay, so where are you now? What is your identity now? And where are the gaps, right? We have to get honest with ourselves. Where are the gaps between who I am now and who I want to be? And those gaps very often are filled with our personal limitations. And those limitations include how do we feel about things and how do we think about things, right? And so when it comes to money, a lot of the limitations that we will find come down to how were we indoctrinated, programmed, conditioned, however you want to describe it. What did someone teach me about my relation to money, being especially a woman? A lot of women grow up with a perception saying that we are not supposed to be the ones handling the money. Someone else is supposed to do that. A lot of women grow up with this idea that women are not good with money, even though research shows that's definitely not true. A lot of women grow up with the idea that if you don't have already an inherent skill for money, then it means that we're not meant for it. But money is a skill like everything else is a skill. The problem is, if you don't feel like you're supposed to be dealing with money, if you don't feel valuable when it comes to money, if you don't feel like if you feel like money is scary, it doesn't matter how much you actually learn about money, you're not going to take the steps to implement it. And so when it comes to doing this work that I do in identity shifting, it's not just looking at the limitations, it's also really getting clear on how were these limitations inputs into my identity as it is. And it's about, for me, rooting it back to where did these ideas that I have about money, where are these stories that I have about money, where did they come from? It's very rare that we have something that was told to us directly. It's not that necessarily someone said, you can't deal with money. It's that we saw a mom who refused to handle money, for example, right? We mirror how other women in our lives acted around something as we grew up. And that really informs a lot of the decisions that we make. Now, a lot of people think that just because their conscious mind, their logical mind, their thinking mind learns something that we're going to implement it. But much of what we do as human beings is about how we feel about things, the irrational behaviors around things, which comes back to the subconscious mind. How many of you have an idea of the conscious versus subconscious mind, what that is? Not so much. Okay, some. There's some. Okay. So I like to describe it this way. You have two parts. This is simplifying things, right? My dad's a neurologist. He's going to hate me for saying this, but just imagine that there are two brains, right? You have the logical mind and the irrational mind, the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind. And I want you to just imagine for a second that these two minds of yours are on a road trip together, okay? You're in a car. You have the conscious mind is sitting in the passenger seat holding Google Maps, right? Like this. And the conscious mind is telling you this is where we're going. These are the goals that we have. This is the destination that I want to get towards. These are all the things that we must do in order to get to where we're going, right? The conscious mind is making all the plans. But the subconscious mind, which is mainly driven by a desire for survival, recognition for patterns, and resistance against anything that is unknown. okay? Unknown, dangerous, subconscious mind focused on survival. We don't do dangerous. So this is also why sometimes when you cross the road, you're halfway through, you see a car coming. Without having the conscious mind kick in, a lot of people will run back to where they came from, right? Instead of continuing forward, we go back to where we came from because the subconscious mind knows that the first half we did was safe. We did not die here. And so the subconscious kicks in, kicks us back, and then all of a sudden you're like, why am I still standing on this side of the street? I wanted to cross. Because the conscious mind doesn't always make the decisions. Actually, very rarely it does make any of the decisions. So here's the thing. If you're driving in this car, you have the subconscious mind driving the actual car, deciding where we're going. You have the conscious mind giving directions. The conscious mind will tell you, we're going to turn right next time. But the subconscious mind is like, no, I don't feel like it. I'm going to continue straight. Okay? And what happens now is that you're on Google Maps. Google Maps is just going to create you a new route. Saying, it's okay. We got this next time. And then the conscious mind brings up all of the reasons and all of the explanations as to why it was totally fine that we turned right instead of going straight. And you will see this. How many of you have ever desired to start going to the gym? And then you just ended up finding a lot of reasons for why you shouldn't. Huh? Yeah? It's the whole, let's start on Monday, right? We're going to go to the gym on Monday. We're going to buy a subscription, membership, whatever. We're going to start on Monday. Monday is far enough into the future for it to be comfortable, okay? We have plans for future self. But now the days pass, right? You get closer. It becomes Wednesday, Thursday. Oh, now Monday is suddenly getting close. We start getting these feelings of, so I'm going to have to get into the gym. There's these big sweaty guys and everybody knows what they're doing and I don't know what I'm even going to do in the gym. I don't know how to do anything in the gym, right? Also Monday, this weekend is actually going to be a long weekend and I don't think I'm going to get to bed and do enough time for me to get up early Monday morning. I think next Monday is better. Can any of you recognize this kind of rationalizing, right? We do this. We make excuses for the discomfort that we have so we don't have to do the thing we don't want to do. So the conscious mind will say, we have all of these plans. This is who I want to be. This is what I want to do. The subconscious mind says, no. And then the conscious mind comes in and says, it's totally fine because there's all of these really, really great excuses as to why I shouldn't do it right now. And then we postpone it into the future. And before you know it, it's next Monday. Actually, it's actually better to start on the 1st of the month. Actually, if we wait until December, we will have a discount because all of the gyms have discounts in December. Actually, December is like the holidays, so we should wait until January, right? Not January 1st, everything's going to be closed. January 2nd, that's when work starts. I feel like we should be at least a week or two into January, and we just keep doing this. Before you know it, it's next year, it's next year, it's next year. We have the same justifications as to why we shouldn't do it, and we think we're in control because the conscious mind gives us all of these great excuses, yeah? So this is how we usually deal with change. You can apply this to any and all areas of life. How we think about things and how we feel about things determine whether or not we actually get to implement the plans that our conscious mind wants us to do. So what I like to do is that I'm looking into why is there such resistance to this change? Why is my subconscious fighting this change so much? Very often it's simply that it's unfamiliar, right? It's something that we don't know. It's uncomfortable. If you have deeper emotional triggers, it might be that you feel like maybe something happened when you grow up, right? Maybe you saw something really bad happen to somebody in the gym when you were a kid, and now you start getting these emotionally harsh triggers that keep you away from actually going. Now that has to be dealt with. When it comes to money, it can be looking into what were the stories around money that were told to me. What were the ideas that I have around money? Even understanding, if someone tells you, oh, you really should start investing, how many excuses come up in your mind, right? I don't really have the money for it. Well, I don't really know what to do. I don't really know how to do, I don't know where to start. I don't know about money. I don't know, women shouldn't be handling money. What are all of the stories that we're telling ourselves that are getting in the way of us actually making these moves to make more money? Could it also be well, my husband is going to feel really insecure if I start making more money than him. Oh, if I get successful, I'm never getting married. Right? Have you heard those? Those are some very, very uncomfortable stories that when we're looking into the culture around money and gender, we will see that there's a lot of people who tell you you shouldn't become too successful as a woman. Yeah? Can you relate to some of those? Small nods here and there. Yeah, but these are uncomfortable conversations because we also, when it comes to understanding the stories that we have around money, we have to also look into whether or not we want to buy into that belief, right? Just because someone told you, if you're going to be successful, you are not going to get married. Is that true? Can we find examples of very successful women who got married? Can we find examples of couples where the woman earns more money and they're still in a really happy and wonderful relationship? Could it be that if there's someone who has a problem with you being successful, it's not your problem, it's the husband? Maybe. Could it be that we should start changing the stories, not just for women to make themselves smaller, but how can we teach men to hold capacity for having a successful partner, right? What are the limitations that we decide that we want to buy into? What are the stories that we will accept? And when it comes to women in pretty much any area of life, there's so many stories being told and so many stories being upheld in culture that we almost refuse to target, to handle, to deal with. Because when it comes to doing something, going against what culture says, you're not only going to have to deal with the extreme discomfort of going against your own programming, you also have to deal with society pushing back against you, right? When you do things that are against your culture, you're going to have aunties and uncles shaming you, right? You're going to have a lot of people saying, what are you doing? Why are you even... there are aunties out there who are saying, why is this woman out here making so much money? Shouldn't she just stop this business and get married instead? Right? You've heard these stories. And so it comes down to, who do I want to be? That's something I always ask people when it comes to figuring out, what is this shift that I want to go through? We have to get honest with ourselves about who do I truly want to be? And get clarity on what does that identity look like? And get clarity on, am I willing to do the work of becoming this person? Because a lot of people, they will say, I want to become this person who's skillful in, let's say, money. I want to learn more about money. And so they take all the courses and they read all the books and they go to all the summits and they attend all the conferences, but then they go home and change nothing. And when it comes to transformation, if you don't do the work of actually changing and working things differently and doing things differently, things will never change. Your life doesn't change just because you know something else. It's like practice. It's like learning French but never speaking French to somebody. Are you actually implementing any of it? And there is a huge comfort in feeling like we are doing something towards our goal and then knowing that we're at least doing something. But unless we're doing the things that actually matter, we're not going to have the transformation that we seek. And so when it comes to this work, a lot of people tend to get uncomfortable because even being faced with the excuses that they're making towards themselves is a discomfort. So the subconscious likes to communicate not through thoughts, but through feelings. So very often when we feel resistance, it can come through a pinch in the stomach, it can come through increased heart rates, it can come through just starting to feel a level of discomfort. The body reads this as danger, right? It's almost as if when you're being faced with a wolf or a lion or whatever, right? This is really uncomfortable. We can get those same feelings in our bodies trying to do something that is against what we've done before, when it's different than something that we've done before. And so what the body experiences are all of the symptoms of being in danger. And so it makes sense that we want to get out of it. And sometimes all we have to do to get out of it is just say, let's not do it now, let's wait until Monday. So if we want real change, we have to look at what are these symptoms that I'm experiencing in my body and why are they really here? And am I going to buy into my body and my subconscious trying to tell me that I shouldn't do something when what it is actually teaching me is that I'm just trying to do something new that it hasn't experienced before. That I'm challenging the status quo. It's literally, I think, doing something like going to the gym when you don't feel like it is one of the most impactful experiences that we can have, because it shows us and it teaches us that we can do things that our bodies are resisting. It comes to setting up that business whenever someone told you that you shouldn't, right? When you're receiving pushback from other people saying you really shouldn't do this because if you get too successful, you can't get married, you have all of these risks, all of these things will go wrong. And then we're talking to our broke uncles about how to make money, and what your broke uncle is telling you is that you shouldn't. And we're experiencing all of these conversations. I know that you're laughing because you know that it's true, right? People will literally take financial advice from their broke uncles. Let's not do that. Let's not take advice from people who have demonstrated that they don't know what they're talking about, right? Honestly, we do this way too much because we put authority in someone just because they're older, they have status in some other area of life, and we give them all of the power to anything else. Why would you take health advice from someone who lives off 𝗪𝗪𝗃𝗵 and has never exercised in their life? It's the same. And so it's really important that we come to these conversations that we're going to have here today, and we're going to learn what is actually the truth about wealth, and we're going to look at where is my resistance towards actually gaining wealth, where is it coming from? How many people here are church people? Do you feel like there's a correlation, there's a shaming when it comes to money in the conversations that you have with other church people? So what I see a lot is that people will cherry pick quotes from the Bible and say, because this is in the Bible, then it's bad. Yeah? Even though the first thing we learned about Jesus is that he was given gold and treasure. Yeah? Even though we literally can see that giving is good. Right? Can we all agree that giving is good? Giving is praised? Feeding into your community? Investing in other people? How are you going to do that when you're broke? And so there's so many people who want to keep you in a position where you don't have a lot of money to move around with, even though there's all of the evidence in the world that having money is good. But if there's a deep belief somewhere within you that having money is bad, you're never going to get the money. Okay? You can't get something into your life if part of you believes that having it is bad. And if you believe that money is bad, then whenever you kind of try to get some money and you fail, it doesn't feel like failure, it feels like virtue. Because now you get to say, oh, I tried so hard. You did the good part about doing the hard work. But now you can't be shamed, and you can't have people bugging you for money, and you can't have broke uncles calling you and first shaming you in the first conversation, and then directly going into, hey, can you fund me this thing? Can you pay for these other things? Being able to support other women, for me, is something that we should all strive for. Being able to support women's businesses is something that I believe we should all strive for. Having money to be able to support women's businesses, I believe, is a good thing, right? And I believe there's evidence everywhere in the Bible, in any scripture, in any area of life, you can find evidence that being able to support other people is good. And you can also find a lot of evidence that other people benefit from women being held down, and one of the greatest ways to hold women down is to removing their access to money. Because the more you're financially secure on your own, the less you need other people that want you to need them. And so when we do this work of closing the identity between who am I now and who do I want to be, one of the most impactful things that we can do is look at all of the stories and all the resistance that we feel when it comes to money. When we start even speaking out loud, I want to set up my business, I want to start investing, I want to start doing all of these things, what are the responses that you get from the people around you? Because when you have resistance from your environment, you're less likely to move forward. Have you experienced that? If you want to make change in your life, one of the most important things that you can do is look at your network. They say your network is your net worth, but I would say that your network is everything when it comes to change. No matter what area of life you want to change. If you want to stop drinking alcohol, find friends who don't drink alcohol. You want to start going to the gym, find friends who go to the gym. Right? Start hanging out with people who are already doing the thing that you want to do. And I think that's one of the reasons that an environment like the one that we're in now is so important. Because we get to hear other women who are already doing the things. If you want to set up a business, find entrepreneurial friends, because they will never tell you, oh no, it's not possible to set up a business. They will tell you how they did it. So I see you carrying up towards me a microphone. Is it because we get to take some questions, or do you want to kick me off? Because I've only been here, I have another 10 minutes. Yes? Our beautiful Irma. Yes? We're good? Okay. Does anyone have any questions? I would like to take a question or two from the crowd before we close off. I know that these conversations are a little bit heavy, and sometimes I point out inner conversations that are very uncomfortable for people to talk out loud about. You don't have to ask a question for yourself. You can ask a question for your cousin, or somebody else, or patterns that you noticed, right? Nothing? It's okay, we don't have to take questions. It's just much more fun when this becomes relevant to you. And so if we're gonna leave this conversation anywhere, I would love for you all to notice, when does this inner resistance come? Because if we don't notice that it's there because we're stepping into the unfamiliar and it's not actually true. It's not actually true that this thing that we're going into is dangerous. It's just that we don't know it very well yet. When we're starting to feel a level of resistance, help yourselves by just journeying a little bit on, why am I feeling this resistance? Why is this so uncomfortable? What are the stories that I'm challenging? What is the pushback that I know that I'm gonna get? Once I step, there are people out there who have a deep-rooted fear for success, because success can feel really dangerous. And until you understand why is this success feeling so dangerous, until you look at what have happened to successful women around me that I don't want to experience. How have they been judged? How have they been talked about? Maybe even think about, how have you been talking about people that were successful, if it's not always in the positive? What are thoughts that you're having about other women who are going out doing really grand things? Because guess what? If you're having a resistance towards other women showing you that it's possible, it's because it hits a nerve. Sometimes that nerve is, I've told myself women can't do this, and now I see women doing it, and that is extremely uncomfortable to me, because now I'm faced with my own lie. Now I'm faced with my own excuses. All of this work is incredibly uncomfortable, but you should still do it, right? Because here's the thing. If you only learn how to do it, but you don't overcome the why am I not doing it, you're never going to do it. And that is why we see people who are extremely skilled and knowledgeable and know all the things, but they don't do it themselves. And I bet you can find at least a few areas in your life where you've been doing this by yourself for yourselves. Because this is incredibly common. And I think it's important that we truly understand on a deeper level how much it actually limits women to listen to the stories that we've been told about ourselves growing up. When we learn that women are supposed to be smaller, when we learn that women are not good enough, when we learn that women's value is tied to their looks, right? That was a huge thing for me. I thought I was only valuable as long as I looked good enough in the male gaze for a very long time. Spent a lot of years dealing with depression and eating disorder because my focus was on how can I look good enough in the eyes of men. And so until I changed that, I wasn't able to actually learn the things and understand my own value in a different context. I wasn't going out and doing things that were the good things to do. I wasn't going out and making influence. Until I learned that I was terrified of being judged, and I had to overcome that fear of judgment, I would not put myself into environments where I would be exposed or visible, right? Until we understand where does this resistance comes from. And it's really not fair to this conversation to have 30 minutes. And I know there's so many things to unpack when it comes to women and how they're holding themselves back. But if this conversation can bring you anything, I would really love for you to just consider, what is it truly that is holding you back? And if you notice that you have a pattern, you have a tendency to not do the things that you know you should be doing, there's something deeper there. There's something important to look at. Understanding the resistance, listening to the stories, looking at your networks. These are all opportunities that we have to make real, true change. And finding rooms like these ones where we actually get to uplift each other, where we get to see evidence of people who are doing the things that we want to do. We get to listen to how they think. We get to understand how they move. We get to get deeper insights into what is their identity like, because their identity is a great mirror to ours, right? That is what I would really love for you to take away from this. And when it comes to the next couple of conversations we're having with amazing women doing amazing things, teaching you incredible things about wealth, notice if there is a resistance that is keeping you from going home and doing it. Notice how quickly excuses come up. Notice if those excuses are actually true. Notice that if it were easy, everyone would just go ahead and do it. There's a reason why women don't hold all the wealth, and it's because we are keeping it ourselves away from it. So we have to do that work in order to move forward. Are we sure that's not a question anywhere? Yes, I have a question.
My question is, some of us have, over the years, imbibed some beliefs about these conversations and getting to do what's right for us. My question is, how can one actively rewire these unhealthy money habits formed early in life?
Yeah.
I also want to know, from your experience, what do you think is the most subconscious mindset that's keeping people from doing what they already know is right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a really good question. I have a whole masterclass on this, so I'm going to try to make it very short. So when it comes to actually doing the change, the first step is to recognizing what is actually there, right? The first is the self-awareness piece. It is seeing it. It is noticing it. It's seeing the pattern. It is just understanding I have something holding me back here. The second step is rooting it back to where did it come from. Understanding why did I have this belief? Because guess what? No matter who you are, when you came out from your mom's womb, you didn't have any ideas around your self-image or money. You had nothing holding you back. So somehow a belief was planted that wasn't yours, okay? So we have to root it back to where that came from. When we root it back to where it came from, we will be able to see this is not inherently mine. And I can refute it, I can reject it. And then the last step is to reframe it. So saying, okay, if this belief that I have is not in my favor, it is holding me back, what kind of belief would actually push me forward instead? And then just keep repeating that reframe to yourself until you have a deep felt belief in it. So that very, very simply, those are the steps that you would go through. When it comes to what are the most deep-rooted beliefs or subconscious beliefs that people hold, especially women, it is that it is not meant for them. The thing is that women in today's world, unfortunately, are still trained to become servants. We're still trained to always give and give and give and never put ourselves first. We're always trained to make sure that everyone is fine but not us. And when we are taught to constantly serve other people without getting compensation, asking for compensation feels very counterintuitive. We're going to have that rejection towards it. We're going to have the rejection when it comes to negotiating a new salary. We're going to have the rejection internally when it comes to increasing our prices, or even some people pricing for their fees. So many women are out here doing free work, even outside of their families, because it's so hard to say, I want to get paid. But boys are taught that if they do something, they should be compensated for it. And so it becomes really, really easy to say, well, if I'm going to do this, how are you going to pay me? It's natural. And so it really is fighting with that belief that you should somehow give and give and give without being compensated. That's one of the most, when it comes to money, it's one of the most deep-rooted beliefs that we hold, that are holding us back from going out there and getting the money that we want, right? Also see how often do you feel like you have to justify a want before you feel like you can act on it? Very often we feel like there needs to be a rational explanation for why we want something before we will even go for it. And if the explanation is, I want to get filthy rich so nobody can ever tell me what to do, we somehow don't feel like that's a really good explanation, right? Because we don't want to say it out loud. But I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. Get into a financial position where we cannot be manipulated. Get into a financial position where we can support other women, where we can invest into communities. It's one of the best reasons for gaining wealth. And we need to believe that more than, I shouldn't ask for money because I'm meant to serve. That's not a true belief, in my view. Did that answer your question? Okay, great. So my half hour is up on the minute. We do have another, do we have time for a question? Just one more? 2 minutes? Yes, we do have another question here. Thank you.
So my question is around about the habit of women of not, wanting to take risks. So most of women want to settle. So when they get to gain a little bit of money and they have a salary and that's it, they want to settle at that level. They never want to really become wealthy. Most of them, they want just put food on the table, make sure that their kids are okay. Even if they start a business, very few women are targeting to become wealthy, billionaires. So how do we support women, or how can we become really wealthy if we are not risk takers? So that's my question. Thank you.
That's a really great question. Thank you. So first of all, I never tell people what they should want. Right? I just question, is it your want or is it somebody else's want for you? And so when it comes to women not wanting to take risk, it makes a lot of sense because we're very safety driven as human beings. It's human behavior. Women want to feel safe because we want to feel safe for us and for our families. Now, the question becomes, is the risk actually putting you in danger? Right? We have a tendency to make risk much bigger than what it necessarily is. And can we start thinking about, okay, if I want to make more money, what am I really risking here? Am I risking judgment from others? Am I risking, like we spoke about in the beginning, am I risking that I'm not going to get married? Am I going to risk that my husband is going to be really decided? We've had so many stories about husbands that want women to give up their businesses because they feel insecure that their wives are making more money than them. And dealing with that is real. Like, how do you even deal with another person who doesn't want you to have wealth? Someone that you love, someone who's your safety, someone who's maybe the father of your kids. That is a real and genuine concern. And it doesn't just get solved by you saying, oh, but I'm just going to do this anyway, right? That it takes a lot of deep work for yourself and for the husband. And so it's really about understanding what are the stories that I'm telling myself and what are the stories that society is telling me that makes me want to not take risks, that makes me want to not be visible, that makes me want to stay smaller than what I necessarily have. But what I always like to ask people is that if at the end of your life, you're looking back at what were the decisions that you made, which decisions would you be proud of? And very rarely, keeping yourself small is a decision you'll be proud of. Right? So I feel like we all kind of get a little bit more riskier by thinking, I want to make this life count. I want it to mean something. I want it to be important, if that is what you think is important. So it really comes down to understanding, where did this belief come from in the first place? And do I want to buy into it? And do I have the courage? Sometimes it's even like gathering community, talking with women who've been through it, who've done it, getting more insight. Like I said, the subconscious is going to fight what it doesn't know. And sometimes you can start to know something without you even having the full experience. You can know something by seeing other people doing it. And you see it's safe for others, it could be safe for me too. Did that answer your question? Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna hand this back over to beautiful 𝗵𝗯𝗃.
Good morning, everybody. I know it rained, but I want you, can you clap for yourselves? You really made it.